Congress is moving to block the retirement of the U-2 Dragon Lady and restore 4 aircraft, giving the legendary spy plane a new lease of life, just as the Air Force had wanted to wind it down. That fight matters because the U-2 is still one of the most extraordinary aircraft ever built. A machine that climbs into the stratosphere, watches in real time, and keeps doing a job satellites and drones still can't fully replace. This is the U-2 Dragon Lady, the same spy plane from Spielberg's Bridge of Spies. For more than 7 decades, every effort to replace the U-2 has fallen short of what the aircraft can actually do. The problem is that no newer platform has fully matched its mix of altitude, endurance, flexibility, and real-time human control. So the U-2 remains in service, not because the Air Force loves keeping old hardware alive, but because every replacement program has run into the same hard truth. Nothing else has quite been able to do the job as well. At first glance, it looks almost unreal. The wings are impossibly long, the fuselage is pencil thin, and the landing gear seems borrowed from another airplane entirely. But this strange silhouette has been flying since 1956, surviving every era that was supposed to make it obsolete. Jets have come and gone, satellites have multiplied, drones have matured, and yet the Dragon Lady keeps finding a way to stay relevant. That's because the U-2 is not just old, it's uniquely useful. In about 20 minutes, it climbs into the stratosphere, far above weather, turbulence, and most military aircraft. From that height, the sky turns dark, the horizon bends, and the Earth itself starts to look curved. It is the kind of view usually associated with astronauts, not pilots. But the U-2 gives that view to a single person, alone, inside a cockpit at the edge of space. And that pilot has a job to do. The U-2 is powered by one engine, a General Electric F-118, and at altitude, even that engine is working against the thinness of the air. A jet engine is really an air pump, and up there, the atmosphere gives it very little to work with. There is no backup engine, no second chance. Just one pilot, one power plant, and a huge amount of empty sky. That is where the design becomes brilliant. The U-2 is built like a glider with an engine attached, which means it can keep flying even when conditions get severe. If the engine fails, it doesn't simply drop out of the sky. It can stretch a dead-stick glide over remarkable distances. That gives the pilot time, options, and a fighting chance to make it home. But it also means the U-2 lives in one of the strangest parts of flight, the Coffin corner. At extreme altitude, the aircraft's safe speed window shrinks to just a few knots. Too slow, and the wing stalls. Too fast, and the airframe starts to strain. The pilot is constantly balancing between those two dangers, making tiny corrections for hours at a time. It is part science, part nerve, and part endurance test. Then there is the suit. At 70,000 feet, the pilot wears a pressure suit that looks more like space gear than aviation equipment. Before takeoff, the pilot breathes pure oxygen on the ground for an hour, just to clear nitrogen from the body. It's a ritual borrowed from spaceflight, because up there, a bad seal or pressure loss can do to a pilot what a rapid ascent does to a diver. Everything about the U-2 is extreme. Its wings stretch more than 100 feet tip to tip. Its fuel must be carefully balanced during flight. Its cameras and sensors can watch enormous swathes of territory in a single pass. And unlike a satellite, it can be steered by a human being in real time, then sent toward whatever target matters most. That is why Congress is fighting to keep it alive. A satellite can be predictable. A drone can be delayed. But a U-2 pilot can stare at a convoy the second it moves, follow it across terrain, and build a live picture of what is happening on the ground. It can stare across borders without crossing them. It can carry cameras, radar, and signal collection gear that turn the aircraft into a flying intelligence platform with a human brain at the controls. Because the U-2 is not just collecting images, it is building context. If something moves on the ground, the pilot can stare at it immediately. If a convoy appears, the camera can follow it. If a target shifts position, the aircraft can stay on station and keep watching. It turns intelligence into a live conversation instead of a delayed report. And the aircraft's reach is even stranger than that. It can stare across borders without crossing them, watching deep into denied territory while staying just outside the edge of political trouble. That makes it enormously useful and also incredibly delicate. The pilot flies a long oval near the border where the sensors do the risky work of looking inward. It's a beautiful contradiction. The aircraft never trespasses, yet it sees everything. Then comes the landing. If the climb is dramatic, the landing is absurd. The U-2 comes down on two wheels in a bicycle-style arrangement, with chase cars racing behind it and another U-2 pilot calling the descent over the radio. The airplane floats like it doesn't want to land, then stalls deliberately onto the runway. Meanwhile, the wings may dip enough to scrape a titanium skid, throwing sparks by design. Even the little wheels used for takeoff fall off in flight and are collected later. It is weird, old-fashioned, and completely intentional. That is the genius of the Dragon Lady. It was never meant to look modern. It was meant to go higher than almost anything else, see more than almost anything else, and keep doing it long after people assumed it would be retired. Now Congress wants to restore 4 aircraft and block the retirement altogether, a sign that even in 2026, the U-2 still has defenders in high places. For a spy plane built in the Cold War, that may be the most remarkable thing of all.